Hey there, Squirrel Army! It's me, Adam. I'm back in the box, and we're here to discuss more things about EDH this week. And today we're discussing some things I learned about failing with decks.
You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing.
Alright, so we're talking about what you can learn from having a failure of a deck. Because I've had many decks. Not all of them have worked. Even the ones I've got right now, some of them don't work 1,000% all the time. And this is something that I've learned about decks over the last few years. You can't really make a deck 100% foolproof. There's always variance in the game. You can have a power 10 deck and you'll still have variance in your deck. You won't see the same cards all the time. Yes, you'll see a lot of the same cards or the same sort of cards because for the most part you've got the same sort of cards. You've got your ramp or a lot of your early game, fast mana ramp. You've got a lot of tutors, you've got a lot of stuff that does a lot of the same sort of thing, and that's how you build redundancy in your deck so that you can find those times that your deck is actually flowing correctly and doing the things that you do want it to be doing, which is, building up to you winning the game at the end of the game. But throughout that game, what you're trying to do is just have fun and get interest or get gameplay or get different strategies out in that game. So this is something that I think you only can learn by losing games and by having decks that don't work and by building decks that don't work. And again, I will say that people who go, well, I wouldn't play this card or that card or whatever in your deck or whatnot. I think that's a bad card. And I can say that sometimes too as well. But there's a lot of cards that that to me, I would say, I think a lot of people are wrong about no matter, no matter what. Because I just saw, I think it was EDH. Oh no, it was the Command Zone that came out with a video. Bad cards they still play, and one of them was like, oh, a bunch of them were actually pretty darn good, and I was like, you're talking about these cards as if they're bad cards, and that's also another thing. Cards are only bad in conjunction with the situation in which you're playing them. Again, if I play Lurking Predators, let's say, which is, a lot of people think it's a bad card, but I don't think it's a bad card. I think it's an alright card. I don't think it's the best card in the world, but I still think it's a very good card. But I play that card, and someone immediately blows it up. The first thing that happens. That's the worst thing that can happen with that card. Like, either it gets negated or, countered, or just destroyed right away. If it gets counted on the stack, then, yeah, sure, I've wasted 6 mana. But, hey, it isn't the worst thing in the world, but still, it's not the best thing in the world. I wanted that to resolve, at least. So, you have to think, well, if it had resolved, type thing, even if somebody had destroyed it, hey, I would have got 1 trigger off of it. And, yeah, sure, if I hadn't have gotten my mana values worth out of that 6-drop spell, well, if I didn't get another 6-drop or something that was as powerful as a 6-drop or more, then I lost out on that exchange. But, that card isn't my win condition. That's just a value card in my deck. And, again, if it sits out for any longer than a couple of turns and people don't blow it up, it's going to generate me so much advantage. And that's what I was just like. I was just like, dude, this card's really, really good. It's actually that stupidly good if it doesn't get blown up. Because as soon as a couple of people have played a couple of spells, you've either gotten a couple of creatures of it or you at least got to scry a couple of cards to the bottom. So it's not that bad. And when it does pay off really well, it's really, really strong because suddenly you've got 4 or 5, 6 creatures out off of it. Or you've got 5 or 6 scries off of the thing. Or you've got a bit of both. You've got, 3 scries and 3 creatures, or whatever it is. Or 4 scries and 3 creatures, or 4 creatures and 3 scries, or whatever it is. So eventually you start going, well, this has put in a lot of work, and it keeps putting in that work. Yes, it doesn't do anything, quote unquote, right away, but if somebody, is going to do something on your turn, before you end your turn, then it might do something. But yeah, the creatures aren't going to do anything that turn again, but knowing what your deck's up to and saying, hey, well, I know that my deck has many, many weaknesses, and this is another one of them in a sense, but for the most part, if I land this onto the field, which is, again, a bit of a hurdle sometimes, I can get so much value out of it because to each opponent, and those are the type of things like scaling to that, those extra players and saying, well, mine is a creature-based deck in green. So, hey, why am I not playing something like this? It might be a bad card in some people's mind, but you say, oh, well, I got, for 6 mana in this enchantment, I got, 6 or 7 mana worth of creatures, maybe. And then I get 6 or 7 maybe scries out of it during the whole game. Well, that added up. So that was really, really good in that game. Like it doesn't always do that. But again, I've had those games where I've planted that card and it's just sat there and gone unanswered and people have cast their spells and done their stuff. And I've been in not amazing shape and just sitting there and going, okay, well, if I have a creature on top, it's coming into play. And if I don't have a creature on top, it's going to the bottom, for the most part. And just bam, 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 just get all these things for free off of the top of it. So it can be really powerful at times, but it is dependent on your opponents not blowing the thing up. But again, that is a lot of things, like especially when you're playing essentially an aggro deck. Oh, what's that? You're determined on playing a whole bunch of creatures to actually win the game. Board wipe, that ends your game for the most part pretty much right there. But again, you can't always predict when those board wipes are happening because you never know when opponents have got those board wipes. You're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, this board wipe's got to be coming soon. This board wipe's got to be coming soon. But sometimes it never comes. And you're just like, oh, well, because again, they just didn't draw it. It just didn't happen for them. They didn't get it. They didn't find it when they drew. They didn't find it, for their draw step. They didn't have any tutors for it. They didn't have whatever else. They didn't have enough mana for it. They didn't have the right colors of mana for it. Whatever it was that was stopping them from getting that board wipe out there and playing that board wipe that they have in their deck. Maybe they only have 1 board wipe. Maybe they only have 2, whatever it is. Because again, they're probably playing a creature deck too. And when you're playing in that metagame of middle, lower, elo, of whatever you want to call it, like above precon or whatnot, and above upgraded precon, but below everything else, it's kind of like, well, that's the metagame, bro. There's not a lot of consistency in it. And even when you say there's a lot of consistency in CEDH, there's still a lot of inconsistency. I've seen it, bro, What's that? I didn't draw my counterspell? Well, that's game for me, probably, because, hey, well, this probably means Steve over there is comboing off, or whatever. I can't stop that now because I didn't draw my counterspell that I needed to stop him from comboing off. That, or, hey, I needed a counterspell so I can stop, Alan over there from counterspelling my combo, or whatnot. And I just didn't draw it. I didn't have a tutor for it, blah, 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 or whatever. I just didn't have it at the time. So yeah, it's one of those things about playing the game. You're always going to find decks are inconsistent because you have to shuffle your deck, and whatnot. You're not always going to get what you need, especially when you say, oh, I'm going to cut 5 lands, unless you're going to put in 5 mana dorks or whatever, 1 CMC mana dorks, or, 5, fast mana rocks, you're not replacing those lands properly. You're not replacing them with mana sources that you need and will be able to use for your game plans. You need to have enough mana in your deck to consistently be able to do what it is you need to be able to do. And yes, sure, if you've dropped your curve down very low, it will be a lot easier to get that mana going, but again, still you could just draw all your mana sources and then nothing else. You don't know that you're going to draw whatever you're going to draw, no matter what you've got, for the most part, unless you've got tutors. And again, you're not going to be sure that you're going to draw those, even if you've got a whole bunch of them. So you're just never going to have 1,000% consistency. That's a myth. It's not real. There's no way anyone and any deck can be 1,000% or whatever consistent, or 100%, over 100% consistent, or even up to 99%, consistent. There's just no way that a deck can be that consistent. And this is what you find out. So you say, well, dude, does this, actually mean my deck is actually bad? Even though I have pushed it to the absolute limit of, being the most powerful deck that it can be. Well, no, it doesn't mean that. It just means that games are inconsistent and decks are inconsistent. Inconsistency is part of the game, and it's just one of those things that if you've built decks and understand why they work and understand why sometimes, hey, well, yes, sure, this isn't the best card in the world, but it works for what I'm doing and it works for the metagame that I'm in and whatnot, it's not a bad card in that sense. It's a good card because, yes, sure, it's not always going to pay off, because nothing can always pay off, but you're trying to give yourself the most chance in that game to be paid off for what you're trying to do. If you say, okay, I'm playing keyword soup, I have a whole bunch of keyword soup creatures, and I have Odric to share all my keyword soup creatures' abilities. If I have all these keyword soup creatures, why am I not just running a whole bunch of flyers? Because, besides, Trample or maybe Menace or whatever, flying's the best mechanic that I can, but evasive mechanic that I can probably give to my creatures in mono white. So why am I not just running a whole bunch of flyers? I'm trying to give all my creatures flying. I'm trying to share as much flying as I can across my entire board with the creatures that don't have flying. So why am I not just running a deck that's all flyers? When you look at a deck like that, to me, again, it's an illogical deck. But if that's what somebody is having fun with and wants to do, you can point out to them and they won't care. Because it's more about the experience and the fun and the idea of the deck than it is the logic of the deck or whatever, or the power of the deck. Because obviously just going, okay, the main thing I need besides, utility creatures and whatnot and whatever else, card draw, ramp, and things like that, is stuff to kill people. So I need to run as many super evasive creatures and as, whatever, efficient of those creatures as possible. And, if I want to stick to that theme of keyword soup, hey, I want to give vigilance to all my creatures, because that's a cool ability. I don't have to tap to attack. Well, that's pretty good, because I can run a whole bunch of flying and vigilance. Okay, so now I'm getting 2 really decent abilities. Are there any other really good abilities? Not really. That's about it. I don't know. That's kind of about it. Maybe Ward or something, but I don't think that's Shed or Shroud or Hexproof. Those sorts of things, yeah, but I don't know. But beyond that, there's just not very much. So you start going, well, that's kind of it. That's all I really need. First Strike would be nice in some circumstances. But it's not that important. It's not that important to have any of these other keyword things there besides, vigilance, flying, and shroud or hexproof. Those are or indestructible maybe. That's the only other one, I guess. But yeah, beyond that, you start looking and saying, well, there's not that many other super good abilities. Maybe Skulk or something just can't be blocked or whatever. But that's the same thing essentially as flying in the end or whatever. Horsemanship, same thing. It's just one of those things. You just start saying, well, why am I doing that? What, like, am I playing a ninja deck where I'm just going to ninjutsu this in? Well, why? Besides, like, I'm just going to poke people for free damage. Where's that going? Like, as a strategy, again, once you fail at a deck and whatnot, and you start looking at a deck, you can start seeing the holes in any deck. And that's the thing, I can see holes in every single deck, even my own decks, but that's fine with me because, again, it's one of those things that, well, I'm having fun with what I'm doing, and that's what matters to me. No matter the holes or the inconsistency, yes, there'll be inconsistency, and somebody will say, oh, you shouldn't run that card, or whatever, you shouldn't run this card, or whatever, you should run this card, and you should run more of this, you should run more of that, blah, blah, blah. You don't understand the deck, or the way my deck functions, or the way I want to function in my deck. I am the pilot of my own deck. If you want to build this deck, then build it your way. Like, if you have so many opinions about my deck, why don't you go and build it for yourself? Like, it's one of those things that, like, I don't try to give too much advice to people, because, hey, at the end of the day, if they want an opinion, they might ask for it. So I don't try to do that too much, but I do say, hey, if you're trying to cut a card, or if you're trying to add a card, or you're saying, well, I have this card, this, 5-cost Mana Rock, or whatever it is. I want to put in some 2-cost Mana Rock. What should I put in? Well, what do you have? Like, it's a process, not just, oh, well, I have this, what should I put in? Well, what do you have? Like, it's not just looking at a deck and or a card and saying, well, you should put something else in there. But that is, again, somebody's choice to put that in there. And we do go out of our way as content creators and whatnot to put our opinions out there. I have done that in the past too, and I'll continue to do it. But that's one of those things. If you decide to take this advice, it's not me telling you you have to take this advice. But I think you're better off failing at a deck and going, you know what, that actually taught me a whole bunch of lessons about deck building, rather than just copying and pasting lists, because anyone can copy and paste a list, but if you don't really know the ins and the outs and the ups and the downs and the backs and the forths of that deck and the way that it works and the way that it wins and the way that it gets ahead, and yes, sure, sometimes it's inconsistent again, but that is every deck. So again, if you don't really understand that, hey, this is a deck, it's going to do things sometimes, and it's not going to do things sometimes. But hey, the times that it's sort of working, and I'm trying to figure out how does this deck work, what should I do next, etc. Those are the most fun parts of the game for me, and that's what I want for other people, because again, bringing it back to the more simple, basic strategies, again, reinforces those strategies that people kind of just forget, because suddenly everybody's gone to this world where all of that stuff doesn't really matter for some reason, and I don't really understand it. Then they get caught with a deck that's like mine, which is pure and simple, and they go, how the heck am I losing to your deck, which is just a simple aggro deck? Dude, because my deck is pure and simple. It does its thing, or it doesn't do its thing, type thing, like, it does its thing well when it does its thing, and that's it. Like, your deck's just not doing its thing, and my deck is. That's the point. Like, my deck, it is built to do the thing, but again, sometimes that doesn't happen. Your deck is built to do your thing, but again, you haven't failed enough to realize that your deck won't do that all the time. You're too caught up in, oh, but I have this, I have these tutors, I have this, I have this, I have Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you have in your deck, because again, no deck can be whatever, even plus 90% efficiently, actively consistent. You can't get a deck that consistent. It's just not really possible. It's just one of those things about variance in this game, because you have so many variants in the game. So no matter what, for the most part, you're going to have an inconsistent time. One time or two times here or there, whatever, you're going to go, wow, my deck absolutely sucked during that game. And then another game, you'll just be going ham and winning the game on turn 2 or whatever, or on turn 0 or whatever it is. And then another game, you'll be sitting there going, damn, bro, what the heck? It's turn 12 and this, little aggro deck's just about to kill me. And I can't do anything because my deck's not doing anything for me. So again, just getting back to basic strategies. And that's what I think a lot of people need to get back to, and knowing how to play a deck. Knowing that it's okay. Well, I'm probably going to lose this game because, hey, I missed a turn. Well, I missed another turn. Well, that's pretty much me done. At that point, if I've missed 1 or 2 turns, if I've missed 1 or 2 land drops, I'm probably not going to get back in this game at this point. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be, okay, well, how can I have fun now that I'm probably going to be out of this game, unless I can pull it absolutely out of my ass at some point. It's not completely infeasible that you could pull it out of your ass. But, again, you have to be happy with going, well, my deck's just stopped doing what I want it to be doing, so I have to have as much fun in the game as what I can, or do whatever I can to try to prolong my game until I can do something, until I can be relevant, until I can be doing those things that I do want to be doing, or whatever it is. Again, it's all about the interpersonal relationships that you have with the people that you're playing with, and saying, hey guys, I'm out. Dudes, I'm out. Don't worry about me. I've missed 2 land drops. I'm out of this game, bro. I'm not in this game. I'm just here to, chill now. I'm just over here on my phone or whatever. If you're wondering whose turn it is, it's not mine. It's whoever's after me because they haven't been paying attention or whatever, or whatnot, and that sort of thing. Or, or whatnot. So this is one of those things. But it is what it is, as always. But anyway, because I think it's an important conversation that people need to really get back to. And as I said, is one of those basic thoughts. Okay, let's strip back. Take my deck back to square one. Let's put my commander out. What does my commander, or whatever card I'm actually building around, which is usually your commander, do or want me to do? Well, it wants me to kind of do 2 things for the most part, or whatever it is. So, or whatnot. So, where can I go with the thing or things that my commander wants me to do within my deck? How do I make my deck work? How do I make my commander work for my deck, but not be the only thing that works for my deck? Because if I'm over-reliant on my commander to do everything or to enhance everything that I'm doing, then my deck's not going to work very well when I don't have my commander. And yeah, sure, my commander makes my deck better, but I have to be able to win and do things without it, because sometimes I won't be able to have it. So it has to just sit over there, and I have to be a bit sad that I can't play it. But again, I'm still building with it in mind for the strategy that I'm playing. I'm not just saying, oh, I have an angel commander, so angel tribal. Does my commander actually do anything with angels? No, it's just an angel. So I'd go, dude, you need a commander that's an angel does something for angels, cares about angels in some way. At least, because at least then your commander's working for your strategy overall and whatnot. So you got to know what your commander brings to the table, but also that your deck can work without it, because otherwise you get into that predicament of, again, being too reliant on it. But anyway, getting back to that strategy, keep it simple, stupid, because keeping it more simple and going, well, yeah, sure, tutors would make this deck more consistent. As I said, it will make your deck more consistent. Might take it from like 70% to 80% depending on how many tutors you put in. But again, you're not going to get over 90% probably, I don't think. Maybe you will get up to 90%, but not over like 95%, I don't think. But whatever. Again, getting back to simplicity. How does my deck win? Like, how do I have fun in trying to win? Because my deck probably actually doesn't win very easily. So instead of really focusing on, I have to win, focus on how can I try to win? How can I make it look like I am going to win to my opponents? How do I play that game of, well, I'm still here and I'm still a threat, or I could still win, but, it's not a foolproof plan, but hey, it's not just gonna sit here and not really do anything for the most part, because it's actually got a whole lot going for it for the most part. Yeah, sure, it can have bad games or whatnot, or just bad draws, bad luck, bad shuffling, whatever it is, anything and everything. But again, that is deck building, and that is life in deck building. But again, you get back to the simple parts of it, and it will make your deck building better. So sorry that wrap up sort of took so long, but anyway, that is what I was trying to, I guess, get across in this one. So yeah, but anyway, guys, hope you have enjoyed this one. You can always leave your comments down there in the comments below. Be sure to try to respond to them, and hope to catch you guys in the next one.